What is up, guys? It's Plan Q here, and welcome to a new type of video that I'm doing. I've kind of contemplated doing a video like this for a while now. I haven't really ever done a video on my opinions about anything in the game, and I figured that maybe this would be a good place to start. I'm going to be doing a rating of every single exotic that is usable by a Warlock. Well, in terms of armor, I suppose. But, yes, I realized that a lot of content creators have done this before. But I do believe that everybody brings to the table their own sort of opinion to things and their own sort of take on things. So I don't think that this is necessarily stealing an idea. You know, a lot of people have their own opinions and can give their own intake on how exotics are used. And I play this game a lot, to say the least. So I think my opinion is valid. Anyway, each exotic will be rated on a scale of from 1 to 10, and I will be giving my reasons for every single exotic and why I rate them as that. So, without further ado, let us get started. We will be starting things off here with the Skull of Dire Amkara. For the Skull of Dire Amkara's perk, we have Delusions of Grandeur. Take reduced damage while using Nova Bomb. Improved energy drain abilities. Now, in PvE, I'm giving the Skull of Dire Amkara a 1 out of 10. And in PvP, a 2 out of 10. You aren't really ever going to use this. I guess it's kind of nice to be able to get a Nova Bomb off in with a pinch of health, but even with this exotic, it's difficult. As for the improved energy drain, other exotics do its job better. A fitting aspect. The description is pretty fun to read in a narrator's voice, though. Reality is the finest flesh, O bearer mind. And are you not hungry? Anyway, moving things right along, we have the Apotheosis Veil. For Apotheosis Veil's perk, we have Private Reserves. Immediately regenerate health, melee, and grenade energy upon activating your super. Apotheosis Veil in PvE is getting a 4 out of 10, and in PvP it's getting a 4 out of 10 as well. I've never really used the Apotheosis Veil, but I could imagine myself giving it a go. This is one of those exotics that isn't really great and isn't really bad, but I know one thing, and that is that this exotic is ugly AF. Like, the fabric is just so ugly. I just don't like it. It looks like this thing was stitched together after being broken apart 6 times. Which, I mean, I guess might tie into the exotic perk, but, you know. Anyway, guys, moving on, we have the Light Beyond Nemesis with its exotic perk, Keeper of the Pack. Revive fallen teammates and be revived faster. Supers generate an extra orb. Light Beyond Nemesis in PvE is getting a 7 out of 10, and a 7 out of 10 as well in PvP. This is your standard fast res exotic, but this time it's a helmet, because all of the other fast res exotics are chest pieces. Which, this one is nice because it looks good and it goes in your head, which gives you a lot of choices with your chest armor on a Warlock. Which is always nice, because a Warlock does really show off their chest piece, as shown by this Trials chest piece. Anyway, this exotic will be useful in any activity, and it's always a pleasant surprise to be reviving someone and be finishing it in a snap. Next, we have the Obsidian Mind with its exotic perk, Insatiable. Nova Bomb kills reduce the cooldown of your next Nova Bomb. Obsidian Mind is getting a 6 out of 10 in PvE and a 5 out of 10 in PvP. This is a nice helmet to have, and it's good for PvE because you get a lot of Nova Bomb kills per activation, assuming you're not using it to take out a major, or doing boss damage, for instance. It's not so useful for PvP as much, because you're only getting maybe 1-2 kills per activation, or a 3 or a 4 kill, or more, if you're lucky. Next, we have the Ram. The Ram's exotic perk is Strength of the Ram. Increased armor, all Voidwalker melees trigger lifesteal on hit. The Ram is getting a 6 out of 10 in PvE and a 7 out of 10 in PvP. It's always nice to take a couple extra shots in PvE, and health regeneration is always a plus. It's fun to run a Ram and Surge build on a Voidwalker melee, which basically means that you run the Ram, which gives you lifesteal on hit, and then getting Surge on your Voidwalker melee, which speeds you up and everything, and gives you a ton of extra agility, which is nice, especially considering you're not using Ophidian Aspects at the time. Next, we are moving on to the Stag. The Stag is getting a 2 out of 10 in PvE and a 3 out of 10 in PvP for its exotic perk, Do or Die. Once per life, your supercharge is faster when your teammates are dead. Chance to respawn with an overshield. This is a novel idea of an exotic, but you never really want to be the last person alive for too long, and I'll take the Ophidian Aspects in my 1v3s, thank you very much. Not really sure what chance to spawn with an overshield will actually do, but maybe that could come into play. Next, we are moving on to the Astrocyte Verse, with its exotic perk, Move to Survive. Temporary increase to recovery on Blink. Now, this exotic is currently broken, so this could change. The ratings could change, but the Astrocyte Verse for now is getting a 1 out of 10 in PvE and a 1 out of 10 in PvP, mostly because of it's broken. It was proven by Holtzman, whose channel will be linked in the description, that you regen actually faster by 2 frames. I would have given them a 0, but you get to wear space on your head, which is pretty dope. Next, we will be moving on to the Sunbreakers. The Sunbreakers exotic perk is Helium Cycle. Increases the duration of your solar grenade while gaining an extra solar grenade charge. The Sunbreakers will be getting a 9 out of 10 in PvE and a 4 out of 10 in PvP. I personally love the Sunbreakers. They're my go-to exotic for PvE Sunsinger. It allows for some damn good AoE damage and great boss damage when paired with Viking Funeral, which, if you aren't, you're doing it wrong. It's really funny to throw these everywhere after self-resing a PvP, but it's not too practical. Next, we will be moving on to the Claws of Ahamkara. With their exotic perk, the Whispers, gain an additional charge for all Warlock charged melees. The Claws of Ahamkara will be getting a 4 out of 10 in PvE and a 9 out of 10 in PvP. Warlock melees are already stupidly good in PvP, so why not have 2? And they're just kind of meh in PvE because your melee is not really going to be doing a lot of damage to most things, except for tier 1 adds, I suppose. Next, we have the Nothing Manacles. With their exotic perk, Scatter Charge, enables tracking for scatter grenades, hold an extra scatter grenade charge. The Nothing Manacles are going to be getting an 8 out of 10 in PvE and a 7 out of 10 in PvP. A good bit of people I play with swear to these gauntlets. These are part of easily the most viable build for Voidwalkers in PvE, except I don't use them because PvE is easy and I'm too lazy to go get them. And a powerful modifier to scatter grenades in PvP. Only downside, you gotta aim your grenades pretty well. Next we'll be moving on to the Impossible Machines. With their exotic perk, Lightning Rod, unlocks the Stormcaller subclass node landfall for free. On casting Storm Trance, fire a bolt of lightning into the ground, creating a devastating shockwave under you. The Impossible Machines will be getting a 4 out of 10 in PvE and a 5 out of 10 in PvP. They're not really that beneficial in PvE, and while a decent perk in PvP, I end up getting myself killed more often than not trying to kill someone with Landfall, because you basically have to stand over their head to kill them. For our next gauntlets, we have the Ophidian Aspect. With their exotic perk, Viper Totemic. Improved energy drain and weapons ready and reload very quickly. They will be getting a 6 out of 10 in PvE and a stellar 10 out of 10 for PvP. Basically, Ophidian Aspects give you quick draw on a Warlock. When these came out, Warlocks became my new main for PvP because they are so good. The gauntlets, that is. The improved energy drain essentially gives me another grenade instantly. And in the fast-paced Crucible right now, these quick draw gauntlets are a godsend. And in PvP, they're good, but not a necessity. Heart of the Praxic Fire will be getting a 3 out of 10 in PvE and a 2 out of 10 in PvP for their exotic perk, Praise the Sun. Further decreases all ability cooldowns while Radiance is active, greatly increased agility. Now, this exotic was recently nerfed, and it's even less appealing than it was in the first place now. In PvP, I rarely live to the end of my self-res because I get gangbanged by shotguns. In PvE, there's just too many better options in exotics. Next, we have the Void Fang Vestments, which will be getting a 4 out of 10 in PvE and a 9 out of 10 in PvP. With their exotic perk, Hungering Void, spawn with full grenade energy, and your Axion Bolt grenade spawns an additional Seeker. While not better than Ophidians, they do have a large utility factor in PvP. Having an Axion Bolt charge to pester the enemies with is always amazing, and the extra Seeker is always unexpected. In PvE, well, you can get one more enemy with the Seeker. Woo! Now we have the Starfighter Protocol, which will be getting a 3 out of 10 in PvE and a 6 out of 10 in PvP. For their exotic perk, Starfire Protocol, get an additional fusion grenade. Number 1 note from the description: 13.4 billion years ago, the first stars kindled out of the darkness, seeding the future of all. In the current PvP meta, having 2 fusion grenades is terrific. The only reason this doesn't have a better PvP rating is because you already have Gift of the Sun, and this doesn't really allow for any largely better builds. And in PvE, you should never be running fusions, but if that's your thing, then I'd better make introductions. Destiny Noob, Starfire Protocol. Starfire Protocol, Destiny Noob. Next we have the Purifier Robes, which will be getting a 4 out of 10 in PvE and a 3 out of 10 in PvP. These really aren't going to get you out of much that you couldn't yourself in PvE, but somewhat useful. In PvP, most people will see these and just step back a bit, but when you encounter the small minority that don't, you get to laugh as they run around like headless chickens. I have a small bit of enmity toward these robes, as they eluded me through many exotic engrams during House of Wolves. You know, when RNG was cruel, and we didn't have 3 of coins. When I used to be excited for exotics. Finally, for the chest pieces, we have the Alchemist's Raiments, which will be getting a 1 out of 10 in PvE and a 1 out of 10 in PvP. For their exotic perk, Iron to Gold. Chance to gain Glimmer on primary ammo pickup. Orbs collected when your super is full, recharge your grenades and melee. These are honestly garbage. A cool thought by Bungie with the whole alchemist thing, turning presumably metal ammo into gold, except that if this perk does proc, you get like 5 Glimmer. I suppose you could make a case for the side bonus of orbs collected when your super is full, recharge your grenades in melee, but it's also not very useful, which is sad considering this exotic is actually kind of cool looking. Finally, for Warlocks, we have the Transversive Steps. With their exotic perk, Strange Angles, gain faster movement speed while crouching. Picking up ammo automatically reloads the weapon matching that ammo's type. This will be getting a 10 out of 10 in PvE and a 10 out of 10 in PvP. They are clearly the meta. You get to annihilate people at a breakneck pace, even while squatting like a watered-down toad. Just kidding, though. Actually, they will be getting a 5 out of 10 in PvE and a 4 out of 10 in PvP. I do recognize the utility of these in both PvE and PvP. Not having to reload when picking up more ammo is always nice in an activity. And faster movement speed while crouching? Well, if you need some money, put these on and bet your noob friend $20 that you can beat him to the other side of the tower crouch walking. Well, guys, that concludes our... that concludes our Warlock exotic tier listings. Let me know what you thought of this video in the comments, and if you disagree or agree with any of my ratings. And if you did happen to like this, let me know if you would like to see a Hunter and Titan variant of this video. Anyway, guys, that will be all, and I will see you in the next video.